Okay, thank you very much for joining us today and welcome to this Finance Leaders webinar, where we'll focus on how to turn your finance data into a superpower. I'm Michael, I'm the Chief Technology Officer here at Fusion 5. I look after our data planning and analytics area. I'm joined by Phil Taphouse, who is one of our solution architects in the Workday Adaptive planning space. He's also a chartered accountant and he's got a lot of real world business experience as well. He'll be doing the demonstration portion of today's session. And we also have Carly on the call. She'll be monitoring the chat and the Q&A for questions. So if you have any questions, just feel free to post them in the chat, or there's a Q&A option on the toolbar as well. And we can respond to them during the session or at the end as well. Okay. Yeah, and between Carly, Phil, and myself, I think we have about over 30 years experience in this space, which is kind of cool. So I just wanted to point that out. Next slide, please, Phil. Okay, today, in terms of an agenda, I will just give a really quick introduction to Fusion 5, and then we'll talk about some of the challenges that finance leaders and finance teams face today when it comes to business planning. And when I talk about business planning, I'm talking about budgeting, forecasting, financial reporting, or even longer term planning as well. It's sort of the umbrella term that encompasses all those activities. Then we'll talk about, what is the nirvana? If you can use your data effectively, what does that enable you to do? And then we'll get into a demo of Workday Adaptive Planning and share details around, what we've a new product that we've created, which really helps accelerate your journey with adaptive planning as well. Next slide, Phil. Okay, so just a little bit on Fusion 5 if you haven't come across us before. We're a business consultancy company. We've been very successful in helping organisations get foundational apps in place. So whether we started off with ERP and customer relationship management systems, and then over the time, we've grown over the 20 years. I think we started off with about 4 people, and now we have 750 employees. We've got locations throughout Australia and New Zealand, and around 1,200 customers. We do a few other things. We do enterprise cloud and security, and we've recently started up our own transformation advisory area of the business as well. And Phil, Carly, and myself, we're from what we call our data planning and analytics area of the business as well. I guess one of the things we focus on, or we pride ourselves on, is we really want to add value for our customers, and our value is just around reliability, being innovative, and being available. That's how we like to be perceived through the market. Next slide, please, Phil. Okay, when it comes to business planning, just wanted to, a lot of you will know this, but if you've been in finance for a while, obviously the role has changed and evolved over the last little while. Finance used to be more of a transactional record keeping type function. But now, you're kind of in the middle. You're really have become, the strategic advisor to the business. So there's been a big shift. And the reason for that is because obviously it's quite key to consider costs and things like that, when you're making business decisions. So you're kind of the go-to and the advisor between all of these areas in the business. And, really that gives you a lot of capability to help improve the business and help drive it forward, as I'm sure you're doing. But it also creates some real challenges, and at the heart of those challenges, it's really important that you have good processes and good technology in place to be able to do that effectively. For example, you need timely information available to look at how you can work with these other teams to grow the business and make sure it's sustainable. Next slide, please, Phil. And some of these challenges, and I'm sure these won't all be new to a lot of you. Manual processes is quite a big one for me because a lot of what we do is making data accessible and connecting to source systems automatically, so you don't have to go through and sort of dump out data out of a system, put it together, aggregate the information, and sort of transform it so it's ready for reporting and planning type processes. um, that's a real big challenge and takes a lot of time. It's quite inefficient if you need to do that every time you want to see a P&L broken down a certain way, or whatever it is you're reporting off. So that continues to be a major challenge, and inability, it sort of affects your ability to properly forecast as well, because the process is so onerous, it just takes too long to do. You've got to do too much work just to prepare and get the data ready. So that's one of the key challenges. Spreadsheets, spreadsheets are great, but it's well documented that they can have errors in them, or if they're large spreadsheets, they probably do. And there's limitations as well. I was talking to a client just the other day, and I think they had about 30 linked spreadsheets which made up their budgeting and forecasting process. Obviously, if you've got errors, or you want to make changes to those spreadsheets, it becomes very, very onerous. You have to go through and make changes in multiple places. And you have to spend a lot of time just checking and making sure that you haven't invalidated formulas, or you've refreshed the data that you need to produce the plan, or the budget forecast or financial report that you're looking at. So there's it's not really the purpose they were designed for, to be able to solve business planning type challenges with spreadsheets to produce budgets and forecasts. It's just they're quite often used in that capacity. Um, and the moment you want to try different things, you want to run different scenarios. What happens if I buy a new business, or if I introduce a new product line? It becomes very difficult to do that, and then compare the results of doing that with your baseline forecast as well, because you don't have sort of native variance analysis capability. You have to kind of replicate all your books and then sort of bring them all together again. So very, very challenging, and more challenging, and more risky if the processes are complex. Siloed data is also a challenge. So, if all of the different areas and divisions in your organization have their own data sets, it's very likely that you will have different views of what your revenue is, or what it looks like. You'll have conflicting information, and you may go into meetings and people are like, oh, what's the real number? This is my number, this is your number. It's very important that when you're wanting to plan effectively, that you're all singing from the same hymn sheet. You've got all of your numbers effectively coming from the same centralized area, so that they're the same, and you can make good decisions based on them. And then obviously there's been a lot of disruption over the last few years. So another challenge has been agile enough so that you can make you can change, and you can react to things that are happening in the market or in the world, and so forth. Can you move to the next slide, please, Phil? Okay, so what we try to do, or what we like to do, is work with clients and really help them shift the dial. So they can move away from spending 80% of their time, their available time, collecting data, doing data preparation activities, maintaining spreadsheets, and they can move to spending more of that time on the analysis. And this is obviously very important if you are that advisor to the business, because by the time you've sometimes gone through the process that you need to get the data in the right format and produce your forecasts or your plans, um, you don't really have too much time left to look at and interrogate the numbers. So that's kind of what we focus on doing, taking away all of the mundane sort of work, bringing your data into a system so, you're agile enough to do a reforecast if you want to without having to do all this extra work to be able to do it. So shift you from that sort of older work week to the newer one, and hopefully give you some free time back at the end of the week as well. Next slide, Phil. And if we do that effectively, there's a lot of value in being able to do that. As I mentioned before, because you've got your data available, you can start using that data to, make trusted decisions, because, data-driven decisions essentially, you can actually model different scenarios, and you can, you know, share the insights with the other teams that you've got in the business as well, because you're all building on the same sort of plans, and really it can help you make more timely decisions, and Phil's going to reinforce kind of how we go about doing that when we get to the adaptive planning demo. Next slide, Phil. Okay, really quick, I just wanted to point out that so Phil's going to focus on talking about our Workday Adaptive Planning product. We've got a team of 15 people across New Zealand and Australia. They've got a lot of different experience and backgrounds. 90% of them come from accounting and financial type backgrounds. And we work with this platform a lot with clients. We've done over 70 implementations in the last 4 years. And these implementations involve integrating with different systems, different ERP systems, different personnel systems, and so forth. So we've built up quite a bit of expertise in this space. And as we mentioned earlier, we like to innovate as well. And we've just launched our Fast Start service, which Phil will share with you. Next slide. And the last one from me, really, I just wanted to point out that even though we've been doing this for a long time, it's always great to get recognition, from the business partners that we work with. In this case, Workday. And they've awarded us Solution Provider of the Year for the last 2 years, which is really quite neat. So we just wanted to share that as well. And we've obviously got different accolades from the previous years. But anyway, that's enough from me, and I'll just pass over to Phil now to take you through the demonstration.
Great, thanks, Michael. So the demonstration section here, we've got an agenda here. I just want to quickly talk through this and explain what parts I want to touch on. So the first one, creating a unique user experience for a business user. In this webinar, I'm going to focus a lot on the business user and orchestrating the process. Furthering to what Michael was saying, data quality is the key outcome that we want in terms of budget process, forecast process. And that's really where we would get this superpowering of the finance data. If we can make sure everyone in the business can be integrated with a process which is producing a financial budget or forecast outcome, and then for reporting on that, we want to be very sure that that data is very good and high credibility. So this is what these first two are going to show us. We want the business users to be able to plan strategically. They have a strategic outcome compared to just having spreadsheets. So that's the first two lines in there, focusing on that. Then in terms of managing, I've got 3 different ones happening here, 3 different scenarios: managing a budget, managing a forecast, and also managing a forecast, but from a team manager's perspective. So each one is unique, and that's why it's really important to absolutely go down to what are the needs of the people in the particular process they're in that is going to get us a result of a high quality outcome. And finally, Michael touched on it a bit, because once we've gone through these, you may be wondering, okay, well, how can I get this in? Well, we have a methodology called a fast start, which enables us to, at a very high speed, get you time to value at a very low risk. So that's going to be very interesting towards the end. Okay, so we'll just start off with a bit of a joke. I'm not laughing, but the point here, and this is typical of the budget process, that when I was first kicking around a decade or two ago on this, the budget process was a laughing stock. It was one of those processes which so much um, so much effort was put into in an organization for so little value. So that's absolutely true, and that's half of what we're looking at. So we want a high quality in this with adoption, and it's not too hard. And for, I put up 2 tomato ketchup bottles here, not because you're in the wrong place, but because I want to focus on user interface and user experience, UX. And I don't know if many of you have made this transition from the two, but this is a nice looking tomato ketchup bottle, but that's what happens. That's the experience. You bash it down. So this is not trivial. It's really important, I feel, that we focus on the experience of the business user is such high quality that they are not just navigating around screens and having to have very difficult availability of data. That's what we're going to really show today. So we want to go from this to this, of course, a really app-like experience, and that's going to be a key theme of what we'll be looking through. All right, one final thing. I'm going to come back to this, but I just wanted to put this up now, and for your memory, I see these sort of process flow diagrams, and they sit generally on shelves, documented in paper. And today we will look at how we actually would digitize this, so it would actually be a live process. It doesn't need to be in a folder. It actually is there live, and we have this here across many different roles. For instance, gather previous months historical data, budget data, update with high-level assumptions. All of this becomes some seamless process with all the connections, all these arrows taken care of. So we'll come back to that, but I just wanted to bring that through first. So with that done, I'm going to go straight into the product. This is Workday Adaptive. So I'll just go straight into this. Now, with that focus on user experience, we want an app-like deployment. So what you can see here, well, listed here are a number of business apps. I'll call them apps because they are so guided and allow you the business user to easily update and have goal-seeking, data-driven behaviors. You can see here how we can focus on different roles like company summary, or something just for finance, or something around revenue or HR. Each one of these allows the person to update and get their job done in a very easy, seamless way. So what I'm going to do right now with this Add New button is create an app. And what I'm doing here is from scratch. So for the purpose of this is, firstly, I want you to see that before we go into a screen that's been done, that this is not something that's been built over a long time. It's quite quick and easy to build these, but it also focuses on the user experience. So I'm going to add an app with an add new. It's called a perspective, and I'll just call it sales. We'll call it webinar just so that I can find it. Sales units. So this is going to go to the sales team. As we can see there, I'm focusing on a user. And as you can see there, I've just got a blank screen. So I'm just going to select the level of the user or types of users that I want, just so that I can bring up data that I can work with as I'm building this. And also we can see I've got, I'm setting it to a version called a working budget. So the first scenario I'm going to look at is around creating an app which would work for a sales budget terms. I simply have to click on edit, and immediately I'm presented with 2 panes, as you see here. And what I'm going to do first, I want to deploy 2 models, and the models I can bring to the surface is through this called sheet, somewhat counterintuitively, and I'm just going to size it to the one I want. I'm going to bring in 2 models, one here, I'll just make them big enough, and another one the same sort of size. So this is literally building from ground up, drag and drop. So I'm going to go to the first one here, and on my right hand side now I can start to say what do I want to appear here. So I'm going to pull in one of my models for building a demand plan for sales. So don't worry if this sales is not your thing, but it is about us just having product revenue. Take that one. So I can just pick it from the list. That's in units, but I'd also want to bring up some pricing information. As you can see there, it's populated, starts to populate that. I'm going to put in some sales drivers because I want the person to be able to play with the actual sales drivers as well. And there's one actually called sales drivers, which I'm going to populate there. And you can see, as I click on done, I now get presented with two data sets or data models, but I'm not happy with this. It's not in the format and the way I want to look at it. I want to get a customer view here. So in fact, I'll just change the name here and I'll call this customer units because that's what I want them to do in that one. And this one, I want to put in product pricing. That's one of the drivers. So then I want to present this in a way which is going to be very easy for them to get the job done. And so these are just clicks. I can just click on and change the view. And instead of looking at the accounts or metrics, I want the customer view. So I can choose that. And what do I want them to plan on? I want them to plan on units, but I could have chosen all sorts of other areas. And I'll also have products in here because I want them to plan for the products. So I can just select the ones I want and simply start to build up the screen that I want them to see. And we can start to see now we have got some customers. This is in green, and because as we go ahead there, green is for past data and the white is entry data that I want them to see. I just want to refine this a bit more because I'm still not quite happy with the view. For the first of all, the periods I want them to see, I don't want them to see all of that. I just want them to see. In this example, by the way, we just need to go back 1 year. FY21 is actuals and FY22 is my budget year and that's the months I want them to see. I'll also say I want to see the year amount there. So it's just a matter of clicking what I want. And finally, just for the customer view, I just want them to see a few ones because it will only show them the customers that they belong to them as well. But I just want to choose the top customers in this list here. So within a few clicks now, I've got a screen which looks like what I want them to enter into, like so. I'm just going to make a couple of changes to the pricing. I want to see product pricing. So I'm simply going to bring the products into the view. Again, similar to what I did there. Go like so. I want them also to see or change the price, but I could change other things as well. And by doing that now, I've just deployed two of the sheets underneath it. We can see the pricing information now against the products, and we can see the customer information against the product. So that's half the story now. But the next part, I want to build up and bring in feedback information. We want the planners not just to put in information, but we want them to be fed back data and information based on the changes they're making so that they can have goal-seeking behavior and make it easy for them. So this is what they're going to see. Literally, as I build it, is what they're going to see. Once you're ready, you just deploy this. And what I'm going to do is I want to present back to them a couple of charts to make it easier. So I'm going to bring in a line chart and I'm going to make it bigger, make it stand out the way you want it to. And then I want this customer to bring back the units and I want to show them what it was like compared to the same time last year. So as I'm making changes, I can just have that reference point. So simply, I've got a little box button here. It's very accounting, and they're called accounts, which is like, but really it's data, your data model. And we can see we've got data around all of your financial data, but not just financial, around the modeled, cubed. We've got all our business data. The key point here is that this does not want to be about just about finance. Yes, finance and the business there's the stakeholders of the business and there's the stakeholders of the actual executives and so on. So I can delve down into my data model, which we were just looking at, and you might see there and say, I want to see the units. And I just drag and drop it in there and it shows me a unit like so there. And now I'm going to just change a few things. I want the primary axis to start from 0, so that not 0, so that I get a bigger view. And also, because I have to go back a year, my model, I do need to go back to put this to financial year 2022, because I'm looking at an older one. So I'll just go from January to December, just to set the parameters that I want there. So far, so good. Still, I want to bring in the same data from last year. So I'm going to do the same thing, drag and drop it in, same one, looks the same. overlaid, I can only see one. So I need this orange one to represent last year's data so that I'll see something. So how do I do that? Well, that's simply, I can change or filter what data I want to see in each of these two metrics. So for this one, the key one I want here is version. I want this to be from the actuals. So I simply select it. And now you can see, I can see all my versions. And now I'm getting something different. It's still not quite right. We can see the actuals is because in my example here, this is the budget year, and we have got 3 months worth of actuals, but I want the data from last year. And I simply need to change the time there and go, I want the previous 12 months. And there you go, the orange. If I just hover over it, we can see the units, for instance, 545 in January in 2021 and 2022, the related budget. So we can bring together disparate bits of data sets into one view, and therefore, as I make changes to that sheet next to it, the model, I can immediately see the impact. So that's good. Now, I think to really extend this, just to show you the power of this, so we're looking at the units there, but the reason I brought up the pricing is that we want to have the drivers of the outcome available and to be able to flex them and see the impact. So units is one driver, the volume. The other driver will be a price, and then that will impact things like the revenue and the margin. So just to show you, I won't, this is probably worth in a separate webinar, but I can see in my cube there, I can also see a financial one, and I want my people to see the impact on the gross margin. I could also just say the net revenue, but to show you that, I can bring that in and again just drag and drop that in there. Now, this doesn't look right. You're thinking there's something wrong here. That's because of the units. So my gross profit is green, but I want this to appear on a different axis because now I've mixed up my metrics. So I can simply open up my data one there and say I want to change this to the secondary. And just to make it show up differently, because I don't like the fact that they're all lines, I will change it to a column. So great. As you can see there, I can now have, probably doesn't look the best at the minute, but we can see how I can just add another set of data so we can see the impact of pricing as well. I'm just going to take that one out for now because I just want to carry on with my demo, but just to get back, let's say I didn't like that, I didn't want that, I can just take it out. Now, final thing I'm going to do to make this a great app experience is I want to have the ability to see customer view as well. So at the minute I've got time view here, and all I need to do is come here and just copy that chart. I want the same thing. I'm going to paste it underneath it, but I'm going to make a change to this so that I get a different view I can give to the business user. I will call it, I don't want line copy, I will just say units by customer. So very simple. And to change this to customer, I again simply need to go and define the data that I want. And I've got this breakdown. I don't want to break down by time. I can break down by any other dimension I have in the business. So I've got my dimensions here. I've got a 4 here. I've got product, but I'm going to choose customer. And I don't like it quite like that. So I'm going to the only thing I'm going to change here is to change this to a bar column chart. And then I think from there, I've now got my first app-like experience. So just to show you this in action, I can, as an end user now, so I've got my customers here, I've got my units here for each product, and I can also change the pricing if I want to look at gross margin. I'm going to just go to customer 1 here. I'm going to make a very big change, and I'm going to change the unit. So I just want you to keep an eye on the last months here and customer 1 on the one at the bottom here. I'm going to adjust these numbers and just say I thought I'm going to do, I could change and increase by a certain percentage if I want, or value, but I'm just going to distribute like, let's say 2,500 units across, not that many, across the lot there. And as I do that, you can see the numbers update in blue. It says it's complete. I can say, right, let me have a look at that. And just take a look at the blue line that should raise up. You can see that's gone up more because I've added that. And we should see customer one. Probably should have shown that, but that is going up a lot higher than it was there. Again, immediate feedback. I could have, if I had the gross margin there, for instance, I could be doing goal-seeking behavior. I could be changing my dollars. I could say, well, in this same time, I'm going to adjust my pricing as well in some way. We get the same screen and we could see the impact. And once I'm happy with all of these different drivers, I can then say, right, I'm done. I can submit this. So that's my first part here out of the way. I just wanted you to get a very quick, clear example of how you can do this. So next thing I'm going to do, I've called this webinar sales units. I want to deploy this to the business. And so I go down to my one here, and I'm going to share this. It's a sales one, so I want to share it to the sales team. Now, at the minute here, I can see everyone in the organization, but I want to use the groups. We can break down into groups and we can have the teams there just to make it easier. And I've got my sales managers who I want this to have, and I can just go that, save it, and now that's shared out to them. Final thing to do this now is to deploy this through like as a process. So what I have available under my processes here, I'll just open it here, is the ability to create processes where I can see a whole number of deliverables. And this one is a sales manager plan. So it can be all the tasks that you want them to do. And this is a really important part. I'm going to just click on here on the process that I want, which is my webinar sales units. It should be blank. So I'm going to again create this as a deployment, and I'm going to create a deliverable that I want them to do. Complete units. I will put in a description, which I won't go through now. I can assign this to my group, and I can say I want this to be for all people in the group, all group members here, or any. So I'll leave that there. And then I would say, now this is the important thing, going back to what we had in my slides before, where you saw where we had this kind of view of that there. At the minute, I've only got that box there as it is. But what I'm going to do now is push them exactly what I want them to do. And here I got content. And that was a dashboard, but you can see I can deploy reports and ask them to do things. And then it says, well, which perspective did we create? And I think it was called webinar sales units. I created just one dashboard, so I didn't name it or anything. So it's just called dashboard. And when do I want this done? And I can put in, I want it done by Wednesday, and therefore save. I'll just assign this, first of all, to myself just for now. So I'm going to change that of group just so that I can see this, make it me, and then I'll save that. I might also do another one and just have submit, but just I'll go to my process guide here and it will show me on the side here what I've got to do. I can have a description, what I've done, and then when I've done it, I can click it's done. The great thing about this is that this will notify the person when they've got this task and when it's done within here, because I can then simply go and send notification and it will tell them. So again, bringing everyone into the process, all through just drag and drop tools so far. I haven't configured anything that's not there out the box. So that's my first part of that done. Going back to my original agenda, I think I saw a couple of questions coming through, which I think Carly has answered in there. So we have done, we're just going to move on now to, we've done that one there, the unique business experience for the business user, how we can orchestrate this budget process, which we'll come on to more. So we're now going to do the next three here. We're going to do managing a budget, space specifically budget. I'm going to contrast that with the forecast because it's different, entirely different process. We need different screens, different ways of doing this. And again, finally, we've got a forecast going. We're 3 months into the plan. What is it like from a team perspective? So if we come to a one that I've made already. So you've seen one I've just made there. And these are my deployed apps, and I've got one here. But what I'm going to do, I've deployed it as a process. And if I'm a business user, I can just come in and choose my actual process. And it's going to give me on the side here my guide. This is what you've got to do. The information there, it's opened up the screen automatically for them, so you're pushing it directly to them. And there's finally another task here, which is a workflow budget. I'm going to get rid of that out of the way and show you an example here of what I've got. So you can see, similar to how I've created the screen, this is a budget for a budgeting and working out a budget for my workforce. A couple of things here. Here is my HR plans. It's been imported from the HR system. I've also got 3 new hires because I'm making a budget, and this is a budget for the January 22 to December 22. And so we're somewhere in 2021 doing this. I can see that I'm 126% of my expense budget. So this is information, goal seeking behavior. So also you can see on here, I've got some charts, and because it's a budget process and I'm creating a new one, I've got 2 here. I've got plan in blue there, and I've got last year's there. And again, it's just pushing to the person data that's going to make it easy for them as they're making changes up here in this model. They can see the impact and see, does it make sense? Same with this border chart here. We can see last year's actuals for salary was 568,000, but where I am now with my budget based on this is 759. So this is costed into a financial outcome, which you can see immediately. And also, just a quick point here, you only have to deploy this once, because if I simply change this up here to a different one from, say, Melbourne to Sydney, I'll see Sydney's data. So what I'm going to do just quickly to show you, if I'm doing goal seek behavior, I've got 3 new hires. Let's just say I'm a planner and I think, oh, I'm a bit high there. What if I don't hire these 2? I can turn them off like that and save. And we should see that update from 126%. And we'll see all of these blue ones here come down. It's now down to 112%. And we can see we've even gone positive in Q3 based on that. So again, it's goal seeking behavior. I can make decisions on that. But I'm going to put these back in. Let's just say I have to have these. I'm just going to have to explain it and put it in a business case. But again, we're making people accountable as a business user, and we're back to where we were. So I might say, okay, I'm happy with that. So at this stage here, I'm just going to submit this budget. I won't do too much more apart from that, just because of time. And I'll say that's done there. And then I might have a series of steps there. I've just got one there, but when I get to the end, then I get a workflow. And because I am at the top of the tree here, I'm seeing everyone's workflows, but I'm actually in as Melbourne. So if I was Melbourne, I'd only see this, and I can say higher budget because whatever it is you want to say, save note and submit. When I submit that budget, it's then locked my budget. It's gone to my manager, who is sitting here, say, and then they are open, and then they can review my budget. So I've got a flow and a process underpinning to get high data quality. Okay, so let's move on to our next step, which is a forecast. So again, I've built myself a little process, and you can build your own process one here called a forecast example. And let's look at the differences between the two, because they are very different. Many people don't acknowledge that. And I've got 3 tasks here. Workforce, I'm going to go to the top one though, because that's the one I'm at. I've just jumped ahead there. And again, as a business user, it guides me. I can have instructions here, what to do, and it's pushing me straight to where I want to be. I'm going to get that out of the way. And let's look at this now. This looks different, very different. It's still got this grid here where I've got my people in here. And what we can see though is I have got data here. This is the same data as my budget workforce. So just bear this in mind. And you see that all these charts here are changed, but they're looking differently, and they're all saying 0 variance. Now, that's not a mistake. I'll change this. And when I look at a chart here, we are now comparing the plan, the original plan, to the current forecast. We're now not interested in what happened last year so much. We want to see how we are going in my target. I want to push focus onto where you're going to head by the end of the year. So everything's saying 0. So what I haven't done though and I only did this deliberately just to show you, is that we've now moved 3 months into the plan. I'm into April, and we've got January, February, and March as actuals. So this is overlaid our original budget. I've got 3 months actuals, 9 months still budget data in this case here. I'll just get rid of this out of the way. And now you are seeing some variances. We're actually 1.1% in the positive, based on the fact that we've got 3 months worth of actuals coming in, which has updated our plan. Our headcount is still on track, apparently. And we can see here the plan and the current forecast. You see the first 3 months here, January, February, March, are different as they would normally be. But going forward, it's all just tracking because we haven't made any changes. We just overlaid, brought in 3 months worth of actuals. And that's showing up in this here. We've just got 8.2 in the first quarter. But let's look at this now, because this now is a new set of data and it's different. We now, remember we had 3 new starters. They were starting in February, March, and also, February and March, but they've actually got names in there. They didn't say new hire like that one, because they have come in and they've come in spot on schedule. So that's why there's no headcount variance. But I do know this person, for whatever reason, isn't going to start for another 3 months, or maybe I've delayed it. Whatever the reason, I'm going to push that forward and make that change. So I'm in the forecast now, I'm making the changes, and this is going to affect these charts, all of them, as I do them. You can see it's noticed now you 1 down because we're expecting that person to come in. Now they're coming late. We can also see those first 3 months are the same, but now April, May and June have also lower because we pushed them. And then from July onwards, it's the same. And we can see that that's happened here. Really good information. And these charts are what you can choose to put back and make it a really good experience. One other change I'm going to make before we move on is I've noticed Callum Elliott. He's retired at the end of March. I didn't account for this. I've got to replace him. This is a bit of a key thing here. And so what I'm going to do very simply for now is to say I'm going to copy him because it's the same sort of skill I want, and it will create him there. So it's not called Callum Elliott anymore, but I will just use that. And I'm just going to put in a start date. Let's say he started on 30th of the 4th, 2022, and he's not retiring, so I can delete that. And this is unbudgeted, remember. So just bear in mind, when I save this, again, immediately impact, we're going to see what this is. I hadn't accounted for this in my budget, remember. And now we're seeing 12.4% under. That's gone bad. That's still the same. But look at my chart going on forward here. Right from May onwards, I'm always over budget. There's my current forecast to what I planned. This is now a permanent variance, and they're a very key thing to know. It's not like something we just didn't know at the beginning, but we've got to take into account of it. We can't keep explaining a variance because we've got something, and we can see how negative now this has gone in here. All great information for you. So that's that's how that's very different. I'm just going to do my final one here, which is the manager team review. I'm still in the April forecast. I should have marked these as done. And what I'm going to do here is I am now not Sales Melbourne. I am actually sitting in the Australia. I'm the manager of Australia. So I should come up here and look at, here's my team here. So I'm in effect now looking after all these. So I'm going to select there, and now I'm going to get a view across all my team. And again, different user experience. I want to push them information, and these are all created in the same way I did at the beginning. And I could have things like full year versus budget, full year forecast versus budget. Again, very important to know where we're heading, and also similarly headcount variances. Oh, and that's why there was no variances. So let's push that to April. And by the way, that would normally come up as a current version. As everyone's working on the same one, it should automatically default, and we can now see variances there. In terms of a full year, like FY 2022, take the whole year and see where we're heading. And again, give them some charts which just shows them their team performance. I can drill down into these and look at these by, say, employee or level, and simply go and have a look at them and see where they are. For instance, my headcount, we should see a variance in Melbourne, because there's Melbourne, and you can see there's 6.6. That was the figure that they had. and across the team. So again, very different perspective there. Now, that's the end of that demo part, and I'm just going to finalize this with this point here about our fast start, because on one hand, you can see everything there, but how can you very quickly get up and going on this? So what I'm going to do is just shoot through, apologies, I need to get through to my screen again, and get back to what we call a fast start. So fast start is what we've created over the from all our years experiences, and we've done this over the last 6 to 7 months, where we have taken all our business models that we create time and time again, put them all together and create them as an actual product. And the point here is that this becomes then the ability for us to just show you finished tested products out straight away, rather than coming to you and asking you all sorts of questions about how you do things, digging up your spreadsheets and taking a long time over design processes. There's many things which we can just start straight away without going through all that and get you up and going very, very quickly. And what it allows us to do is allows you to do is us to show you something that's finished, and for you to visualize that, your requirements against that, position it against our core models, which might be identical. And we call that an alignment process, because we say, do you want to align to our model? Because it's worked for most people. And therefore you might say, well, that's exactly what we do. Or you say, no, we don't, but we could align to that. Or you might say it's 80% there. But either way, this is the process. And this is the key diagram here. We have this blue area here where we have a number of pre-built models tested and reports, including integration, which means we can literally potentially get you up and running in 4 to 6 weeks based on that, without having to put a big load on you either. Remember, we don't have to come to you and take all your time. But what we also recognize within this fast start is there's going to be, you take our core models, but you have some changes to make for whatever reason. And we still keep this under the fast start. We just call it extensions. And the key thing here, this orange and blue are fixed price. So so it's a fixed price, very low risk, very fast time. And then the last part of it here, and this is a very important one, is your unique business models. In other words, that tends to be revenue, or you might be around projects and things like that, where we do have to dig down and get that out. But even then, we have starting points to go to. And what it looks like is that we have a fast start pack. And I've got 2 slides here. So this is the first slide of it. And you can see all these models here are ones that we do and just present to you. For instance, prepayments or contracts, you just import your contracts, prepayments, and it updates all of your GL accounts, balance sheet and P&L and cash flow, just by doing that. So it's very fast. And the second page here, a whole load of other ones: capex, allocations, travel model, balance sheet and cash flow statement. And you can then extend those. For instance, you might say, well, we have a bit more detail behind our cash flow that needs a bit more behind it to make it really work. So as an example, we've done one recently. So this was the same thing. We got our customer to do this, and they came up with these extensions. They were very heavily work-based, force-based and revenue-based. And then the final one was that we also had 3 individual revenue models. And you can see there we have those 3 sections. And then you come up with this, a costed plan based around those 3 different areas. And this is your fast start, fixed price one-off. This is the extensions, fixed price one-off. And this is your one-off, but not fixed price part of it. And then a grand total. So that, in a nutshell, is our fast. Apologies, I've gone a little bit over. I blame Michael for taking so long, but there we go. And I just will hand back to you, Michael or Dennis.
Thanks, Phil. Do you want to just navigate to the next slide? I think we had oh yeah yeah, we would just go to the Q&A. If there are any other questions, feel free to ask them now, or reach out to us after the webinar as well.
We also have a recording of this, which will go out, so you can listen to this or else distribute to anyone else that you think would be interested.
So I've just unmuted everyone, and if you'd like to be able to talk now, you can.
Okay, if there's no questions, we might as well just close off the session now. Thank you very much. Got something out of it. And yeah, please talk to us if you want to hear more. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks a lot
everyone.
for joining.